New York State is taking a huge gamble on the Adirondacks. It's pouring about $1 billion of taxpayer money into the winter sports Olympic venues in and around Lake Placid. So all eyes are on the agency that runs those venues, the Olympic Regional Development Authority, and on the woman who's taking over to run ORDA. We meet Ashley Walden on today's Story of the Day.
Support for Story of the Day comes from Long Run Wealth, an SEC-registered investment advisor in Lake Placid, providing comprehensive wealth management, retirement, and financial planning solutions. LongRunWealth.com.
Hey, I'm David Sommerstein. It's Wednesday, August 30th. First up, New York is seeing an uptick in COVID-related hospitalizations this summer. Governor Kathy Hochul says state health officials are on the lookout for a new COVID-19 variant circulating in some parts of the country that may be able to evade prior immunity. Karen DeWitt spoke with the state's health commissioner, who says it hasn't surfaced here yet.
For the past couple of years, the dominant strain of the COVID-19 virus has been Omicron, with numerous subvariants. But the new variant, known as BA.2.86, is genetically different than Omicron. It's been found in Israel, Denmark, and South Africa, as well as in the states of Michigan and Virginia. The World Health Organization has classified it as a variant under monitoring, but it has not yet upgraded the status to a variant of concern. State Health Commissioner Dr. James McDonald says the mutations are significant and could mean that the new version of the virus might be more severe than previous recent strains or could evade prior immunity. But he says scientists don't know yet.
This one's different, and that's why we're paying attention to it, because it's really different than the Omicron subvariant. So right now, we haven't seen it in New York popping up at different parts of the planet. We're paying attention to it. And the big question is it going to be a problem or not? And that's what we're going to try to find out.
The state health department's Wadsworth laboratories are intensifying their analysis of wastewater across the state to try to detect any sign of the new variant. They're also collecting more samples of positive COVID tests conducted in healthcare settings to determine if BA.2.86 shows up. The news comes as COVID-related hospitalizations are increasing, although they're at a much lower rate than at the height of the Omicron wave between November of 2021 and January of 2022. It also comes as schools are reopening for the fall. McDonald and Governor Hochul recommend that schools review current CDC guidance and promote vaccinations and testing. They say schools should also make sure classrooms are properly ventilated and that teachers reinforce proper hand washing and other healthy practices. But McDonald said there's no cause for undue worry right now, and he's not changing his recommendations on what to do if you feel sick.
If you do have signs and symptoms of COVID, get a test. If you're positive, talk to your healthcare provider about whether treatment is right for you. It was for me, helped me quite a bit when I had COVID.
McDonald says he felt better after a few days of rest, and he says most people who come down with COVID in the next few weeks and months should have a similar outcome. The newest variant raises the possibility that a new vaccine due out later in September, aimed at providing immunity from the most recent Omicron subvariants, might not be as effective against the new strain. But health officials still recommend that people should get the vaccine when it becomes available. In Albany, I'm Karen DeWitt.
Tomorrow's the deadline for New Yorkers to recertify their concealed carry permits. Catherine Wheeler reports the law now requires the permits to be recertified every 3 years.
The changes to New York State's concealed carry laws went into effect last September after the U.S. Supreme Court threw out the state's prior law. That century-old law limited concealed carry permits to people who could show a special need for self-protection. Concealed carry permit holders used to be able to wait 5 years to recertify their permits. Now it's 3. The new requirement doesn't affect premises-restricted permits. The new state law bars concealed carry for most people in sensitive places, such as bars, stadiums, government buildings, churches, and state parks. Tomorrow, August 31st, is the deadline to recertify if the permit was issued before September 1st, 2020. Anyone who was issued a concealed carry permit after that date can wait until the 3rd year of their permit to recertify. State police say applications must be filled out online. You'll need a New York State ID and an inventory of your licensed pistols and revolvers to complete the recertification. Catherine Wheeler, North Country Public Radio.
The next CEO of the Olympic Regional Development Authority says she'll be looking into new ways to make ORDA profitable. Ashley Walden is joining at a time when Olympic facilities have benefited from nearly $1 billion investment over the years, including an annual influx of more than $100 million from the state. Walden takes over in September from outgoing CEO Mike Pratt, who led the agency for 6 years. Emily Russell spoke with Walden about her plans for ORDA.
You bring some different characteristics as a leader to ORDA, the first female CEO, a former Olympian yourself, competing in luge at the 2002 Winter Games in Salt Lake City. How do you see your strategy for leading the organization differing from the outgoing CEO, Mike Pratt?
Obviously, Mike and I each bring to the table a different set of skill sets. Mike has done a phenomenal job to complete all the renovations for the venues and really pave the way for the next chapter of ORDA's history. I come from a sport background, so I have a lot of deep connections in, regional, national, and international sport, which I think really is a nice transition for the organization as they're in the space where they're now up to international standards and looking to bring back some of the prestigious events that have previously been here. So I think that obviously sets me up well to help navigate that landscape. And then obviously, just with the work that I did in the FISU games, I had a great opportunity to build a team and, experience the leadership of overseeing a large group and a large staff.
Yeah, I want to talk about those FISU World University Games that were in Lake Placid this past winter. There was a lot of local response to it that was a bit underwhelming. Lake Placid's Main Street, pretty empty. It didn't really generate much revenue for ORDA. Considering that record, I wonder what makes you the person to lead the Olympic Regional Development Authority. Yeah, well, I think they're two, it's two very separate questions, if you want to address them separately. So I think first with the FISU Games, it never really was supposed to be about a return on investment over a 2-week period. Obviously, the goals and some of the catalysts that the University Games brought to the table were the venue modernizations, helping to expedite some of the Main Street projects, some of the housing pieces that were lined up. And in those ways, I really do see the games as a success. And they basically ensure that Lake Placid long-term will be able to continue with its sporting legacy and attract visitors to the area for decades to come. So in that way, we really have always had the focus on the long-term goals of it. There's a lot of experiences and ties that go from the work that I had to do on the organizing committee side with the University Games and over to this position. Obviously, the biggest is, and from a leadership standpoint, having to, I had to very quickly assemble a team that covered several different areas, some directly within sport and some on the, supporting functional area side. So those are a lot of, experience that I'm now able to bring forward and address, because obviously the ORDA venues are more than just sporting venues. There's so much that goes into them, and there's a number of operations spread across multiple regions. So as you say, those facilities just got, this massive investment from the state. ORDA is still on track to get more than $100 million from the state. Is that something you expect just to keep happening in perpetuity? And if so, how do you rationalize that to taxpayers? It's a really good question. And it's one, to be honest, it's difficult for me to answer right now because, I officially start next month. And, until I am able to dig in and better understand the operations, where the revenue production is, where there's opportunities to increase the revenue, maybe decrease some expenses, it's hard to say exactly what that future looks like. Obviously, the goal is to increase revenue. The amount of state support after the capital improvements should drop a bit, but there's quite a bit of investment that's gone in, and with additional value in all of these venues, there's obviously going to always be a large budget in order to maintain those operations. So again, difficult for me to say exactly what that future holds, but certainly in the next couple of months, that's a piece I'll really be digging into. That was Ashley Walden, the new CEO of the Olympic Regional Development Authority, speaking with Emily Russell. We have more news all the time on our website, ncpr.org. Music today by I Am Snow Angel of Lake Placid and Evan Veenstra of Gananoque, Ontario. I'm David Sommerstein, North Country Public Radio.